Well, in our first few videos on functions, we looked at the basics, like what they do, how to use them, how to write them. In the next few videos, we're going to look at some of the more maybe sophisticated or slightly more advanced ways that we can use functions. We're going to start in this video with thinking about callback functions, and then we're going to move on to anonymous functions, or what in Python are sometimes called lambda functions. We're going to look at some operations like filtering and mapping. And finally, we'll take a little tour through recursive functions at the end. Again, these are maybe a little more sophisticated, maybe more than you might see in a normal beginning Python class perhaps, but I think they're really important, and they're ways that we can use functions to move into intermediate level programming. All right, to work with functions today, I'd like to get maybe 10 random words that we can start to sort and play with a little bit. So I have in my current directory lexicon.txt, which you can get from eClass. It's just our list of, what it is, 110, 120,000 words, something like that. And I'm going to drop into the Python interpretive shell, and I've already taken the liberty to copy this. I'm going to paste it in here. So I'm just going to open lexicon and create, using a comprehension, a list of all of those words. So I can, how many do we have in there? You remember, it's 110,000. Okay, good. So what I'd like to do is to pull out maybe 10 of those to work with a little bit. So I'm going to import the random module here. That only has one M in it. And I'm going to create a list of words, and what I want to do is go into the random module and collect a sample from lexicon, and let's get, I don't know, maybe only 10 words or so, and see what we get. So here are our 10 words. Now, one of the things that we know that lists can do is to sort themselves. Now, we haven't played a lot with sorting, but today we're going to. So if I want to sort this list in alphabetical order, obviously add yours is going to come out towards the front there as an A word. I can tell words just simply to sort itself. And there you go. Now they're all in alphabetical order. I can even tell it to reverse itself if I want to by doing this, saying in here reverse equals true. If I ask it what words are now, you can see that it's sorted in reverse alphabetical order, which is pretty handy. Now, let's go back into the slideshow here and just look through what we just did and extend this a little bit. And here's what we just did. So we opened lexicon.txt and we loaded that into Python, and then using the random module, we extracted a sample of only 10 words. It just says something smaller to play with here. The 10 I got when I did it earlier. Obviously the 10 I just got in the terminal window were different. Well, that's the nature of random, right? And then what we did is we sorted the list. And every list in Python knows how to sort itself. It's one of the methods that every list has. And Python knows how to do that, how to sort things alphabetically, because letters that are earlier in the alphabet are actually less than letters that are later in the alphabet. And so a lowercase a is less than a lowercase b, just almost as if it was a kind of mathematical thing. It really is, actually. But we talked earlier when we talked about strings that an uppercase letter and a lowercase letter are not the same. So you might actually want to experiment with that a little bit. Is a lowercase a greater or lesser than an uppercase a? Well, you can figure that out in the terminal window in the interactive shell, and that'll give you some clues about how Python would sort if there are uppercase letters in there as well. But what we also did is that we reversed that order. And the way that we did that was that we passed a key value pair, reverse equals true, to the sort method. Now, we've played a little bit with signatures before, but here's another version of that. We can get this in the help window, or this is just a little screenshot that I took. I went online to the Python documentation and I looked up the sort method and found the help on that, and there's just a little screenshot of it. Now here's what you can find that's really interesting, right? And there's a description of the method. So it sorts the items of the list in place. I'll talk about that in a second. And the arguments can be used for sort customization, which is great. So we already sent reverse equals true to the sort method to flip the order. Now, you'll notice, and this is from the signatures that we were working on earlier, if I do not send the sort method a reverse key value pair, reverse assumes to be false. That is its default value. That's why I have to send reverse equals true in order to get that sort to go the other way around. But what's interesting here is that there is also a key that I can send. The default value of the key is none. And we're going to experiment with that for a minute, because the key is actually a technique or a function that I can use to tell sort to do something different than alphabetical. And that's pretty important. Now, there's another one that I want to show you really quickly, which is this phrase in place. In place might not seem like it's very significant, especially if you're not used to programming, but what that means is if something is changed in place, it means that the original list gets changed as it stands. Right? And remember, lists are mutable. They are ordered sequences that are changeable. So what sort does is to change the very list itself. So that's why when I was working on the terminal window there, I did not need to save the sorted list into another variable. Remember, strings are immutable. So if I'm going to play with strings a little bit, I have to save a string into a new variable. But lists are mutable, so I can change them, quote unquote, in place. All right. Well, let's imagine for a moment that I would like to sort my list of words, but not alphabetically. So maybe I'm doing a crossword puzzle or something, and I need to sort my list of words according to how long they are, not according to their alphabetical order. So I want to put all the short words at the front of my list, and I want to put all the long words at the end of my list. Well, I already know how to find the length of a word. That's the len function. We've been playing with that for a long time. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to tell the sort function to use len as its key. So what the sort function will do is say, okay, well, I'm not doing this alphabetically anymore. What he's given me is a new key function called len, and I will use that as I calculate how to sort this whole list. And to do that is pretty easy. So all I have to do is say word sort, but then I put in my key value pair key equals len. Now I put an extra space around that equal sign. Just I think makes it a little easier for people to read. But if you don't like those spaces, leave them out. It doesn't matter. Python doesn't care. So what I'm doing is I'm telling sort not to do it alphabetically, but to arrange based on the number that's returned from the len function. And you can see the results here that gang only has 4 letters, and so that goes up front, and intrinsicalness has a lot more. So that one goes at the very end. Now, this key function is sometimes called a collation function, but the more generic term for these is a callback function. A callback function is the generic term for this that you'll see in almost every programming language. So even if you read this in Python, and some Python documentation calls it a key function or a collation function, I'm going to call them all callback functions. Now, what's crucial and important about this concept is that for the first time we've seen this is the first time, I am not sending data to the sort function. I'm not even sending a value like true or false. I am sending a function to another function. That is to say, it is accepting a function as an input parameter, and it's using that function in its internal calculations about how to do a sort. This concept is really, really, really important. It might be a little bit more sophisticated than what we would normally do with functions, but it's something that you'll see all the time. And in fact, our upcoming lectures on filtering and mapping will use these callback functions, because once you get used to it, this is an incredibly powerful idea. Now, what if I wanted to flip that around, right? What if I wanted to say, put all the long words up at the front, but put all the short words down in the back? Well, I don't even have to do anything. I don't have to fix len. I don't have to adjust the way that it calculates the length of the words. I just have to tell sort now to reverse the order. So I can send it both of those input parameters. I can send it a key or a callback function, which is the len function. And then I can tell it to reverse the order of that by saying reverse equals true. And now you'll see intrinsicalness goes up in the front and gang goes down at the back. Now, the reason that I can do this is because the name of the function here is technically just len. And I know I told you earlier that when I write down the name of a function, I always put the parentheses at the end of the name of the function. Now, if I'm writing some documentation or a comment or something like that, or doing a little tutorial here, I always do that. I always put those parentheses on here. But now let's be a little more precise about this. If I ask the Python interpretive shell what len is, it tells me that len is a built-in function. But if I ask it what len is with parentheses on the back, you'll notice that I get an error, that the function takes exactly one argument, but I gave it 0. So in effect, those parentheses are actually a verb. And the verb says, go do that function right now, please. And in fact, this is how we call a function, is putting those parentheses on there. So if I just say len with nothing else, that is, hey, what is that function? What does it happen to be? But if I put len with parentheses on there, I say, go find that function called len, and because I put the parentheses on there, now go do it. So in this case, when Python tries to execute the len function without any arguments, that's when I get a type error. Let's try it out. So I'm back here in the interactive shell, and obviously I have words. So I'm just going to tell words to sort itself again. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it a key. I'm going to put those spaces in just so you can read it a little better. And the key is the len function, just like we talked about. And let's just do it in proper order. So now if I ask what words is, you can see that it's, I think rhymer must be the shortest word in that list, and then counterweights is the longest. But again, what I'm doing is I'm sending sort a callback function which changes its behavior. Now, if I want it to go the other way, I tell it reverse equals true, and I ask for words, which is harder to do than it seems. Counterweights now goes in the front. So this is a terrific way that I can change the behavior of the sort method. But I am not just restricted to existing functions that are pre-built in Python. We can actually write our own. Let's take a look at this function. Let's imagine, for some strange reason that I can't, let's just imagine that we need to sort words based on some weird criteria like the number of vowels in the word. So right now, there isn't a built-in function in Python that does that counts the number of vowels in a word. Obviously, vowels are A, E, I, O, U, sometimes Y, but let's leave that off for now. So what I can do is that I can write my own function here. I'm just going to call it count vowels. And what I'm going to do is check every letter in the word. And if that letter is A, E, I, O, U, I will increment the number of vowels, and then I will return that number at the end. So basically, I'm just iterating every letter in the word, and I'm checking to see if that letter happens to be in a string, A, E, I, O, U. If it does, I increment the number, and then I return it. And what I can do is I'll just do this with a little, a small list of words. You can see how it works here. I'll just do it with the one that I have in the terminal window. But what I can do is I can iterate my short list of words, and I can see how many vowels are in there, but I can send count vowels to the sort method, and that will sort those words according to how many vowels they have. The words that have the least number of vowels will go up in the front, and the words that have the most number of vowels will go in the back. So let's try that. Let's give it a spin. Here, I set up my words list to be exactly the same as it was before, and I've taken the liberty to already type out my function. I'm just going to paste it here in the interactive shell. Again, hit return, and it thinks the other's still going. Hit return again, and there's my function. So I can actually do this now. I can count vowels of like a band, like there are 2 vowels in there. So let's just test it out. I'm going to do for word in words, and then I'm going to let me print the word and the number of vowels in word. There you go. So counterweights has 5, neutralizer 5, rhymer only has 1. We left off Y, so it doesn't count the Y, it only counts the E. So if I sort this in order according to the number of vowels, rhymer should be first, and then sapphic, and then some of these other ones, and then counterweights and neutralizer should show up at the end. So I'd like to sort words, but my key now is going to be count vowels. And if I ask what words is, there you go. So rhymer and sapphic are at the beginning, and then counterweights and neutralizer are at the end. And obviously, if I want to do it backwards, then I can just say reversed equals true, and we'll get it in the other order. Whoops, I didn't even need to do that. There, counterweights and neutralizer now go down at the front, and sapphic and rhymer end up down at the back. So the lesson here is that I can actually ask Python to use a callback function of my own device. And that might be something that is really complicated. Maybe I'm sorting things according to geographic area, or maybe I have a list of amazing criteria or categories that I'm using in order to look at people or books or something like that. And I need them sorted in a really weird kind of custom way. This is how I can do it. I can write my own callback function and then pass that to sort. Well, let's just look at a few on your own practice ideas here based on what we've done here with functions. So obviously we just wrote a callback function that counts the number of vowels in a word. But here's one idea. Just go back and modify that to count the number of consonants, and then see if you can sort words based on the number of consonants in there. So here's a little flowchart about the kinds of things that you could do, right? How you could achieve that. Here's a second idea. Write a callback function so that you can sort a list of words according to some ratio of vowels to consonants. So for example, the word clans has 1 vowel and 4 consonants, so 1 divided by 4 is 0.25. Meta has the same number of vowels as consonants, so that ratio is 1.0. The word ale has 2 vowels but only 1 consonant, so therefore the ratio is 2.0. Why would you want to do this? I have no idea. I don't know. But it's a good way to start practicing with callback functions. We're just sorting a list of words according to different criteria. That's really the whole purpose of it. Here's a third one. Write a Python function that counts the number of consecutive vowels that a word has. And the same thing, just pull out, 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 random words, and then sort them according to the number of consecutive vowels. So for example, goons has 2 vowels in a row. Q is a really interesting word because it has 4 vowels in a row. Latch string is a longer word, but it's weird because it only has 1 vowel in a row at a time, right? Only once. And then do the same thing, but for consonants, and then go through that whole list again. So goons has 2 consonants in a row, right? The NS at the end. Q only has one consonant because there's a Q at the beginning and that's it. But latch string has 6 consonants in a row, so T, C, H, S, T, R all in one row. So these are maybe not the most useful functions you will ever write in your life, but they give you some really good practice doing something simple, but using those functions as callbacks so that you can learn how to modify the sort method for lists. All right, well, we're going to move on to some other kinds of functions now. We'll move into lambdas and filters and maps and things like that. All right, good luck with your callbacks.